Hello guys, welcome to my channel where stories filled with revenge, moral lessons, and love are told. Don't forget to like, share with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss another story like this one. I remember the weight of those red-inked letters staring back at me, mocking me with their finality. FS, dozens of them. Every test paper I brought home was marked the same, each page bleeding with corrections and scribbles from teachers who had long since stopped believing I could ever improve. My name is Adrian, the son of a man who the newspapers called one of the richest businessmen in the city. To the world, my father Damien was power, money, and influence rolled into one. But to me, he was a voice that echoed with disappointment. A man whose eyes never softened, whose words sliced sharper than any blade. Each evening in our mansion, the heavy silence after dinner would be broken by the rustle of paper. My father would unfold my test results as though peeling open another wound. Adrian, he would say, dragging out the syllables like a curse. Do you even try? Do you know what an embarrassment you are? His words thundered in the vaulted dining room, bouncing off the crystal chandeliers and marble floors. I would sit there, eyes fixed on my shoes, pretending the floor could swallow me whole. Tutors were flown in from across the world, men and women with accents so different from my own, carrying thick binders, promising miracles. They came with reputations, degrees, and arrogance. But they all left frustrated. I was the boy who couldn't be fixed, the heir who didn't measure up. I overheard one mutter to my father as he packed his suitcase. Some children are simply not capable, sir. Perhaps it's best to accept it. That night, I cried into my pillow, muffling the sounds so no one could hear. The mansion itself seemed to carry my shame. Every corridor whispered of expectations, every painting on the wall looked down with judgment. My father never once asked me why I struggled, never once tried to understand. His solution was always the same: harsher tutors, stricter rules, and louder insults. If you fail again, he barked one night, slamming his whiskey glass onto the mahogany table, I will send you to boarding school abroad. Maybe being far from here will toughen you. The thought of exile haunted me. Being sent away, not because he cared for my education, but because he wanted me out of sight, out of mind. I pictured myself alone in some cold dormitory, surrounded by strangers who would laugh at me the way classmates already did. I dreaded mornings when the chauffeur dropped me off at school, because whispers followed me through the hallways. That's the billionaire's son who can't even pass basic math. Teachers, too, gave up on me. Some treated me with pity, others with open irritation. That night, I would sit by the wide window of my room, looking down at the sparkling city. The skyscrapers that bore my father's company name stood tall and proud, symbols of power and success. And then there was me, small, failing, invisible. I wondered if maybe I really was broken. Maybe my brain just wasn't built the way it should be. One afternoon, after another disastrous exam, I returned home to find my father waiting. He didn't raise his voice this time. Instead, he leaned close, his words colder than the marble floor beneath us. Adrian, I am ashamed you carry my name. That cut deeper than any yelling. Shame that was all I was to him. The walls of wealth could not protect me from the emptiness I felt. The tutor's sighs, my classmates' laughter, my father's disgust, all of it formed a storm that drowned me daily. I wanted to disappear, to shrink into a corner of the mansion where no one could find me. But even then, in the quietest corners, failure followed me. And so I lived each day, carrying books I could not understand, facing lessons that felt like foreign languages, waiting for the next explosion of my father's anger. The burden was relentless. I was 12 years old, and yet I felt older, tired, and broken already. I had no idea that in the shadows of that mansion, someone had been watching. Someone who would one day change everything. It was a quiet morning when she arrived, blending into the mansion's endless stream of new faces. Her name was Alina. She carried herself with the kind of humility that made her nearly invisible to the rest of the household staff. To my father, she was just another maid, one more uniform to keep his empire running smoothly. But to me, she would become the first person who truly saw me. Alina had dark, thoughtful eyes that always seemed to notice things others ignored. She moved quietly through the corridors, humming soft melodies as she polished silverware or folded linen. At first, I paid little attention to her. After all, I had grown used to faces coming and going. Maids never stayed long. The mansion, with its icy grandeur, had a way of swallowing people whole and spitting them out when they no longer served a purpose. But one evening, as I sat at the dining table pretending to study, I felt her gaze linger. She was dusting the bookshelves when she paused, tilting her head toward the notebook in front of me. My pencil hovered over the page, frozen, as the math problem glared back at me unsolved. My cheeks burned. I didn't want anyone seeing me struggle, not even a maid. "You're holding the pencil too tight," she said gently. Her voice was quiet but firm, like a secret meant only for me. I looked up, startled. No tutor had ever begun with something so simple. They had always demanded performance, demanded answers, demanded that I think faster, try harder. But Alina noticed the way my hand cramped under pressure that I didn't answer. I expected her to laugh, to shake her head the way others did. Instead, she smiled faintly and went back to her dusting. That small kindness lodged itself in my mind. Days later, I was in the library again, head buried in my arms, defeated by another page of red corrections. Alina entered with a basket of laundry. She paused, set the basket down, and pulled out a chair across from me. "Do you want me to show you something?" she asked that I hesitated. She was just the maid. What could she possibly show me that a dozen world-class tutors hadn't? But something in her eyes held no judgment, only patience. I nodded. She slid the notebook toward her and looked at the problem. Then she did something unexpected. Instead of launching into equations, she drew a tiny picture in the margin. Numbers became shapes, shapes became a story. "See this?" she said, sketching two little trees. "Imagine you have two trees, and each one grows 3 apples. How many apples do you have?" My eyes widened. For the first time, the abstract numbers meant something real. 6. I whispered. Her smile deepened. "Exactly. That was how." It began quiet, stolen lessons in the shadows of the mansion. Alina never tried to replace the tutors or challenge my father's authority. She simply offered me a space to breathe. She told me once, in hushed tones while folding clothes, that she had struggled in school as a child. "The letters danced for me," she admitted softly. "I couldn't read like the other kids. My mother, she taught me slowly, patiently. She said I wasn't broken, I just had my own rhythm." Those words cracked something open in me. My rhythm. No one had ever framed my failures that way. For the first time, I wondered if maybe I wasn't useless after all, that we built a routine. When the tutors grew frustrated and stormed out, Alina would slip into the room later, her apron still dusted with flour or her hands smelling faintly of soap. She would sit with me, guiding me through problems step by step. "Listen to the words," she would say when I stumbled over reading passages. "Don't fight them, just let them settle." She never scolded me when I made mistakes. She never sighed or looked at the clock. She waited. She encouraged me to draw when I couldn't write, to count using the buttons on my shirt when numbers tangled in my head. Slowly, painfully, things began to make sense that I started to look forward to our secret lessons. Her presence in the room calmed me in a way no expensive specialist ever had. She didn't carry credentials, but she carried understanding. And I clung to it like a lifeline. One evening, after solving a problem correctly, I looked up at her with disbelief. "I did it," I said, almost afraid to believe it myself. "You did," she replied, her smile warm enough to light the cold marble walls. "See? You only needed time." Those moments became my refuge. In a mansion filled with judgment, Alina's corner of kindness gave me hope. She treated me not as a failure, not as a disappointment, but as a boy who simply needed someone to believe in him. And for the first time in my 12 years, I dared to believe in myself. I can still remember the morning I opened that envelope, my hands trembling as though they had a mind of their own. The test results had arrived, and the room felt heavier than usual, weighted with my usual dread. I had spent nights under Alina's gentle guidance, practicing problems she'd taught me in ways no tutor had ever tried. But part of me still feared that my father's judgment would crush me before I could even breathe. That I took a deep breath and unfolded the paper. At first, my eyes skimmed over the numbers and letters, expecting the familiar red marks of failure. And then, I saw it. An A, bold and unyielding, gleaming like a jewel in the corner of the page. My stomach lurched, my chest felt light and heavy all at once, and for a moment, I thought I must be dreaming. The paper trembled in my hands, and I whispered, I did it." Alina appeared silently behind me, her apron dusted lightly with morning sunlight. "I knew you could," she said softly, her smile calm but triumphant. No cheering, no shouting, just quiet acknowledgement. But that quiet acknowledgement felt louder than anything I had ever heard before. It wasn't just about the grade. It was proof that someone believed in me when no one else would, that I couldn't keep it to myself. I ran through the mansion corridors, clutching the paper, heart pounding. Like a drum in my chest, I burst into the study where my father was reviewing his morning reports. His eyes flicked up at me, sharp and calculating. "What is it, Adrian?" he asked, suspicion laced in every syllable. I got an A. I stammered, holding the paper toward him. "An A in math." He paused, frozen in a way I had never seen. The anger and criticism that usually colored his face were replaced with something I could barely recognize, shocked. "An A," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. His brow furrowed, and he leaned back in his chair, looking at me as though he had been expecting to see a ghost rather than his own son. "Yes," I said, my voice gaining strength as disbelief turned into pride. I I really did it." For the first time, my father did not raise his voice. Instead, he looked over my shoulder and noticed Alina standing quietly by the door, her posture relaxed, her eyes shining with something I couldn't name. His gaze sharpened, finally registering the truth that had been right in front of him all along. "Who helped you?" he asked cautiously, though I could see the tension in his jaw. Alina stepped forward, calm and composed. "I worked with him in the evenings, sir. Just some guidance, nothing more." My father's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the air in the room was charged with his usual intensity. I braced myself for the familiar storm of criticism. But then something changed. He studied her for a long, quiet moment, and the expression on his face softened in a way I had never witnessed. Recognition flickered, grudging and hesitant, but it was there. "Alina," he said finally, his voice measured, "you've done what no tutor or specialist could manage." There was no warmth, not yet, but there was acknowledgement. The words felt monumental, like a bridge spanning the years of failure I had carried. From that day, the mansion's atmosphere shifted. Tutors were no longer the only adults present. During my study hours, Alina was elevated from maid to official tutor, a role she had never demanded but quietly earned. She maintained her humility, never boasting, never seeking attention. Yet her presence was now central to my daily life. I remember the first evening after my father formally recognized her contribution. I sat at my desk, practicing math problems, with a renewed sense of confidence. Alina leaned against the doorframe, watching me like a sentinel, her calm gaze a constant reassurance. My father passed by the room, and instead of his usual dismissive glance, he nodded slightly, an almost imperceptible gesture, but enough to let me know he had noticed the change in me. The mansion, once filled with cold expectations and tension, began to breathe differently. Laughter, tentative at first, started to echo in the halls. I shared small victories with Alina, and she celebrated them quietly but sincerely. I began to look forward to schoolwork, to challenges that had once felt insurmountable. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. That I also learned something deeper than numbers or grades. I learned that brilliance isn't born from wealth or pressure. It is nurtured through patience, compassion, and belief in someone's potential, even when the world doubts them. Alina had taught me to slow down, to see the world in a rhythm that suited me, and to trust that I could grow at my own pace. And in doing so, she had taught my father something he had never understood, that human connection can outperform even the most expensive interventions. The first A didn't just mark academic success. It symbolized a shift in my life, a validation of the quiet power of understanding. For the first time, I could hold my head high, not because my father approved of me, but because I had proven to myself that I was capable. And Alina, she became more than a teacher. She was a guide, a mentor, and a reminder that sometimes the people society overlooks hold the keys to the greatest transformations. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle changes in Damien. His criticism softened, though it never vanished entirely. He asked questions, offered a nod of acknowledgement, and even allowed moments of pride to flicker across his face when I achieved small victories. The mansion, once a place of dread and shame, became a place where I could exist without fear of judgment. And all of it began with Alina, whose quiet patience had unlocked what no tutor, no specialist, and no lecture ever could. Even now, I can feel the weight of those early failures and the sting of my father's words, but they no longer define me. I am Adrian, yes, the billionaire's son, but more importantly, I am the boy who learned that compassion can outshine critique and that patience can reveal hidden brilliance. My first A was more than a grade. It was the beginning of freedom, of confidence, and of hope. And Alina, the quiet maid who believed in me when no one else would, became the unsung hero of my story. Moral lesson. This story teaches that true growth isn't about wealth, pressure, or titles. It's about belief, patience, and human connection. Adrian's journey shows that even when the world labels you worthless, the right support can unlock potential hidden beneath fear and self-doubt. Alina's quiet guidance reminds us that sometimes the most unexpected people hold the power to change lives, and that compassion can accomplish what money and authority cannot. If you're struggling, know that your rhythm matters and your ability to grow is not defined by failures or harsh judgment. Every small step forward, every gentle push from someone who believes in you, counts more than you realize. Recognize those who lift you quietly, and be patient with yourself as you navigate challenges. True brilliance comes when kindness and perseverance meet, not when pressure or criticism dominates. Never underestimate the power of empathy. Alina's example shows that a single person's belief can transform someone's life completely. Let this story encourage you to value patience, support, and understanding in your own life. Celebrate small victories, trust your journey, and remember that everyone has hidden strengths waiting to shine. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more life-changing tales, share with friends, and leave a comment about the lessons that touched you the most. Your perspective could help someone else find their own rhythm and potential.